The sound of the steamboat whistle echoed across the Missouri River as Victoria Hayes clutched her carpetbag with white-knuckled hands, staring at the muddy streets of Galesburg. Illinois sprawled before her like an unfriendly stranger. It was April 1872, and everything about this journey felt wrong, from the hasty telegram that had summoned her here to marry a man she had never met, to the trembling in her legs that threatened to send her tumbling down the gangplank. She was 22 years old and terrified, though she would die before admitting it to anyone who might ask. The marriage broker in St. Louis had assured her that Theodore Winters was a respectable businessman, a shop owner with prospects, but all Victoria could think about was how she had agreed to this arrangement out of desperation after her father's debts had swallowed everything they owned, leaving her with nothing but the clothes she wore and the crushing weight of obligations she could not escape. The gangplank groaned under her feet as she forced herself forward, each step measured and deliberate. Other passengers pushed past her, eager to reach solid ground, but Victoria moved as though walking through molasses. The spring air smelled of river mud and coal smoke, and somewhere in the distance, a train whistle added its voice to the symphony of industrial progress that seemed so at odds with the fear hammering in her chest. "Miss Hayes," a nasal voice cut through her thoughts. A thin man in a rumpled brown suit approached, his mustache waxed into points that quivered when he spoke. "I am Theodore Winters, your intended." Victoria's stomach dropped. The marriage broker had described Theodore as distinguished, but the man before her looked closer to 50 than the 35 she had been promised, with watery eyes and a pinched expression that suggested chronic dissatisfaction. His hand, when he extended it, felt damp and cold. "Mr. Winters," she managed, her voice barely above a whisper, "pleased to make your acquaintance." "The wedding is arranged for tomorrow morning," Theodore said, already turning away to signal a porter for her bag. "I trust the journey was not too arduous. We have much to discuss regarding the household expectations." Something in his tone made Victoria's skin crawl. This was not how she had imagined meeting her future husband, though she supposed she had been foolish to imagine anything at all. Marriage was a business arrangement, nothing more, especially for a woman with no prospects and a dead father's debts hanging over her head like an executioner's blade. They walked through the streets of Galesburg, Theodore talking at her rather than to her, listing the rules she would be expected to follow as his wife. No speaking to other men without his permission. No leaving the house without informing him first. A strict accounting of household expenses. On and on the list went until Victoria felt herself growing smaller with each word. The boarding house where Theodore had arranged for her to stay until the wedding was a weathered 2-story building that leaned slightly to the left. The proprietress, a severe woman named Mrs. Duncan, showed Victoria to a small room that smelled of old cabbage and regret. "Payment is due in advance," Mrs. Duncan said, her hand outstretched. Theodore counted out coins with visible reluctance. "I will collect you at 9 tomorrow morning. The ceremony is at 1:30. After he left, Victoria sat on the narrow bed and stared at the water-stained ceiling. Her hands would not stop shaking. She had come all this way, burned every bridge behind her, and now she was supposed to marry a man who looked at her like a purchase to be inspected. Tomorrow morning. Less than 24 hours before her life became a cage. Sleep would not come that night. Victoria lay awake, listening to the sounds of the boarding house settling around her, the creak of floorboards, the distant sound of someone coughing, the whistle of wind through poorly fitted windows. As dawn broke gray and cheerless across the Illinois prairie, she made a decision that terrified her even more than the prospect of marrying Theodore Winters. She was going to run. The problem was that Victoria Hayes had never run from anything in her life. She had been raised to be proper, obedient, resigned to whatever fate handed her. But somewhere between the steamboat and that dismal boarding house room, something had cracked open inside her. If she married Theodore, she would die by inches, suffocated by rules and expectations and the cold touch of those damp hands. Victoria counted the money she had left. $11.30. Hardly enough to book passage back to St. Louis, and even if she could, what waited for her there? More debts, more people demanding payment she could not provide. She dressed quickly in her plainest travel dress, a simple gray cotton that would not draw attention. Her hands fumbled with the buttons, still shaking with fear and something that might have been the first stirrings of hope. If she could just get away, find work somewhere, anywhere, maybe she could build a life that belonged to her. The boarding house was quiet as Victoria crept down the stairs, her carpetbag clutched close. Mrs. Duncan was nowhere to be seen, and the front door stood unguarded. The morning air hit her face like a blessing, cool and clean, washing away the stale smell of the boarding house. Galesburg was just beginning to wake up. Shopkeepers swept their storefronts, and somewhere a rooster crowed despite the town's attempt at civilization. Victoria had no plan beyond putting distance between herself and Theodore Winters, but her feet carried her toward the train depot almost of their own accord. The westbound does not leave until noon, the ticket agent informed her when she inquired. He was a young man with ink-stained fingers and kind eyes. "Where are you headed, miss?" Victoria opened her mouth and found she had no answer. Where was she going? What was she doing? "I am too scared to try," she whispered, more to herself than to the agent. "Beg pardon. Nothing. I apologize." Victoria turned away from the window, her brief flare of courage already guttering out. What had she been thinking? A woman alone with no money and no prospects had no business running away. She should go back to the boarding house, marry Theodore as planned, make the best of a bad situation like a sensible person would. She was halfway across the depot when she collided with someone solid enough to nearly knock her off her feet. Strong hands caught her elbows, steadying her, and Victoria found herself looking up into the most striking face she had ever seen. The man was tall, dressed in well-worn trail clothes and a wide-brimmed hat that shaded eyes the color of summer sky. He had the sun-weathered skin of someone who spent his life outdoors, and when he smiled, something flipped over in Victoria's chest. "Whoa there, miss. You all right?" His voice was deep and warm with an accent that spoke of Texas or somewhere farther south. "I am fine. I apologize." "I was not watching where I was going." Victoria stepped back, acutely aware of how close they stood, of the warmth radiating from him even in the cool morning air. No harm done. The man tipped his hat, and Victoria noticed the cattle brand worked into the leather of his belt. A cowboy, then, probably in town to deliver a herd. "You look a little lost, if you do not mind my saying." The kindness in his eyes undid something in Victoria. To her absolute horror, she felt tears burning behind her eyes. "I am not lost. I know exactly where I am. I just do not know what to do about it." The cowboy glanced around the depot, then gently guided her to a bench away from the main flow of traffic. "Name is Cole Bishop, and you look like someone who could use a friendly ear if you are of a mind to share." Victoria knew she should not. Should not talk to strange men, should not burden anyone with her problems, should not do any of the 100 things propriety demanded. But propriety had led her to this moment, to Theodore Winters and a life of suffocation, and she found she had no more patience for should and should not. "Victoria Hayes," she said quietly, "and I am supposed to get married this morning to a man I met yesterday and cannot stand. Cole Bishop's eyebrows rose. That is quite a predicament. I came here as a mail-order bride. My father died and left debts I cannot pay, and the marriage broker said this was my best option. The words tumbled out of her now, faster and faster. But I cannot do it. I thought I could, but I cannot. Only I have nowhere to go and no money and no prospects, so what choice do I have? Well now, Cole said slowly. Seems to me you have more choices than you think. Question is whether you are brave enough to take them. Victoria laughed, a bitter sound. I am not brave, I am terrified of everything. Being scared and being a coward are two different things, Miss Hayes. A coward would go through with a marriage to a man she cannot stand because it is easier than facing the unknown. Takes a lot more courage to admit you are scared and do the hard thing anyway. Something about the way he said it, calm and matter-of-fact, made Victoria believe him. She looked at this stranger who had no reason to help her, who probably had his own troubles and destinations, and felt something shift inside her chest. I do not even know what the hard thing is, she admitted. All I know is I cannot marry Theodore Winters. Cole was quiet for a moment, studying her with those sky-blue eyes. You any good with horses? The question was so unexpected that Victoria blinked. I beg your pardon, horses. You know how to handle them, cook, keep books. Cole leaned back against the bench, perfectly at ease. I am heading back to a ranch about 50 miles west of here. Owner is a widow lady named Martha Crawford, been running the place herself since her husband passed 2 years back. She mentioned last time I was through that she needed help with the house and the books, room and board plus a small wage. Interested? Victoria's heart hammered against her ribs. You are offering me a job, but you do not even know me. I know you are honest enough to admit when you are scared. I know you have enough spine to run rather than trap yourself in a bad situation. And I know Martha Crawford is a fine woman who would not take advantage. Cole pulled a pocket watch from his vest, checked the time. The westbound leaves at noon. I am on it, heading back to the ranch. You can come along if you want, meet Martha, see if the situation suits. No obligation beyond that. I am too scared to try, Victoria whispered again, but this time the words felt different, an acknowledgement rather than a surrender. Cole smiled, and the warmth in it reached all the way to Victoria's frozen heart. That is all right. Being scared just means you are paying attention, but I will tell you what. If you decide to take a chance, I will be right there. Will not let anything bad happen to you if I can help it. Victoria looked at this man, this stranger who was offering her a lifeline with no apparent strings attached, and made another terrifying decision. All right. Yes, I will come. The hours until the train departed crawled by with agonizing slowness. Victoria stayed close to Cole Bishop, half expecting Theodore Winters to appear at any moment and drag her back to the boarding house. Cole seemed to sense her nervousness because he kept up a steady stream of conversation, telling her about the Crawford Ranch, about the open prairie that stretched for miles in every direction, about Martha Crawford's no-nonsense approach to life. She will like you, Cole assured Victoria as they waited on the platform. Martha does not suffer fools, but she has a good heart, lost her husband to a riding accident, and both her sons went east for school and never came back. Ranch has been her whole life. What do you do there? Victoria asked, grateful for the distraction. I am the foreman. Been working for the Crawfords for near about 8 years now. Started as just another ranch hand, but Tom Crawford saw something in me, I guess. Taught me everything about running a cattle operation. A shadow passed over Cole's face. When he died, I promised Martha I would stay on, help keep the place going. She is too proud to admit she needs help, but managing a ranch that size is too much for one person. The train whistle sounded, and Victoria's stomach clenched with fear. This was really happening. She was running away with a stranger to a place she had never seen, to take a job she might not be qualified for. Every sensible bone in her body screamed that this was madness. Cole offered his hand to help her aboard. "Still with me, Miss Hayes?" Victoria looked at his hand, strong and calloused from years of work, then at his face with those kind eyes and that patient smile. She thought about Theodore Winters waiting at the church, about the life of quiet desperation that awaited her there, about the woman she would become if she chose safety over possibility. She took Cole's hand. The train car was half empty, and Cole found them a bench near the window. As Galesburg began to slide past, Victoria felt some of the tension leave her shoulders. She had done it. She had actually run away. The realization was both exhilarating and terrifying. "You all right?" Cole asked softly. "I do not know," Victoria admitted. "Ask me again when my hand stops shaking. Fear is just your body getting ready to do something brave." Cole settled his hat over his eyes, apparently preparing to nap. "You have already done the hardest part. Rest of it will come easier." Victoria wanted to believe him, but her mind would not stop spinning. What would Theodore do when she failed to appear? Would he come looking for her? And what if this job with Martha Crawford did not work out? What if she had just traded one bad situation for another? As if sensing her spiraling thoughts, Cole pushed his hat back and looked at her steadily. "You are thinking too far ahead. Just take it one step at a time. Right now, you are on a train heading west. That is enough." "You sound very sure about things," Victoria said, a little enviously. "Spent a lot of years being unsure. Life is simpler when you trust your gut and do not overthink." Cole shifted to look out the window at the passing landscape. "Sometimes the best things happen when you let yourself take a chance." They talked as the train carried them west, through farmland that gradually gave way to open prairie. Cole told her about growing up in Texas, about learning to ride before he could properly walk, about the restlessness that had driven him north to Illinois. Victoria found herself sharing things she had never told anyone, about her father's slow decline after her mother's death, about the crushing weight of responsibility she had carried for so long. "You have been taking care of everyone else," Cole observed. "When is the last time someone took care of you?" The question hit Victoria harder than she expected. She could not remember. Even before her mother's death, Victoria had been the capable one, the responsible one, the one who could be counted on to manage things. "I do not need taking care of," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. Cole smiled gently. "Everyone needs taking care of sometimes, Miss Hayes. Ain't no shame in it." By the time the train pulled into the small station that served the ranching country west of Galesburg, the sun was starting its descent toward the horizon. Cole collected their bags and helped Victoria down onto the platform, which was really just a raised wooden walkway beside the tracks. A wagon waited nearby, and a grizzled older man with a weathered face called out, "Bishop, thought you would be on this run." "Hey there, Frank. This is Miss Victoria Hayes. She is coming out to the ranch to meet Martha about a position." Cole loaded the bags into the wagon bed. "Miss Hayes, this is Frank Peters. He runs the feed store in town and gives us a ride when we need it." Frank nodded politely. "Pleasure, miss. Any friend of Cole's is welcome." The wagon ride took them through country unlike anything Victoria had ever seen. The prairie stretched endlessly in all directions, covered in new spring grass that rippled like water in the wind. The sky seemed impossibly vast, unmarred by the buildings and smoke of the city. Despite her fear, Victoria felt something in her chest expand to meet all that open space. "Beautiful, is it not?" Cole said quietly, watching her face. "It is terrifying," Victoria admitted. "But yes, beautiful too." The Crawford Ranch appeared as the sun touched the horizon, washing everything in gold. It was larger than Victoria had imagined, with a sprawling house, several barns, and numerous outbuildings. Horses grazed in a nearby paddock, and cattle dotted the distant hills like pepper spilled across a tablecloth. A woman emerged from the house as the wagon approached. She was tall and lean, probably in her middle 40s, with steel gray hair pulled into a no-nonsense bun and eyes that missed nothing. This had to be Martha Crawford. "Cole Bishop, you are 3 days late," Martha called out, but there was warmth in her voice. "I was beginning to think you had decided to stay in Galesburg." "Just took care of some extra business, Martha." Cole jumped down from the wagon and turned to help Victoria. "I brought someone I think you should meet." Martha's sharp eyes took in everything about Victoria in a single sweeping glance. "And who might this be?" Victoria stepped forward, trying not to let her nervousness show. "Victoria Hayes, madam. Mr. Bishop mentioned you might need help with the house and bookkeeping. Did he now?" Martha shot Cole a look that suggested they would be having words later, but her expression softened when she looked back at Victoria. "You have experience with ranch books." "I kept my father's accounts for 5 years. He was a merchant in St. Louis." Victoria lifted her chin, determined not to show weakness. "I can read and write and figure. I am a fair cook and not afraid of hard work." "And why exactly are you looking for work out here instead of in St. Louis?" Martha's tone was not unkind, but she clearly wanted the truth. Victoria took a breath. She could lie, make up some story that sounded better than the truth. But something about Martha Crawford's direct gaze made her want to be honest. "I came to Galesburg to marry a man I had never met. When I met him, I realized I could not go through with it. I ran away this morning, and Mr. Bishop was kind enough to suggest I might find work here." Martha was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. "That takes some courage, running from a bad situation with no guarantee of something better. Come on inside. You look half-starved, and we can talk terms over supper." The house was warm and welcoming, far more so than Victoria had expected. Martha led her to a large kitchen where a pot of stew simmered on the stove, filling the air with savory smells that made Victoria's stomach growl in a most unladylike manner. "Sit," Martha commanded, ladling out generous portions. Cole had disappeared, probably to tend to the horses, leaving Victoria alone with the formidable ranch owner. "I will be straight with you," Martha said as they ate. "I do need help. Ranch this size generates a mountain of paperwork, and I have been letting it pile up because I would rather be outside with the stock than inside pushing a pencil. House could use a woman's touch too. I have been doing the minimum to keep things from falling apart, but it is not enough." "I can help with that," Victoria said quickly. "I ran my father's household after my mother died. I know how to manage a house. The wage is $20 a month plus room and board. You would have your own room and meals are provided. I expect honest work for honest pay, no more and no less." Martha fixed Victoria with a steady look. "But I need to know you are not just running from something. I need to know you are running to something. This is not an easy life out here, Miss Hayes. Winter is hard and we are isolated. The nearest town is a 2-hour ride. If you are looking for society and entertainment, you will not find it." Victoria thought about Theodore Winters, about the suffocating life she had left behind, about the vast prairie she had seen from the wagon. "I am not looking for entertainment, Mrs. Crawford. I am looking for a place to belong, a place where my work matters and where I can build something of my own." Something in Martha's expression softened. "All right then, we will give it a trial. 1 month, see how we both feel about the arrangement. Fair, more than fair, thank you." Victoria felt tears threatening again, but this time they were from relief rather than fear. After supper, Martha showed Victoria to a small bedroom on the 2nd floor. It was simply furnished with a bed, a chest of drawers, and a washstand, but it was clean and bright with a window that looked out over the prairie. Bathroom is down the hall. We have running water, one of the few luxuries Tom insisted on before he died. Martha paused in the doorway. I am glad Cole brought you here, Miss Hayes. I think you might be exactly what this place needs. After Martha left, Victoria sat on the bed and tried to process everything that had happened in the past 24 hours. Yesterday morning she had been on a steamboat, resigned to marrying a man she did not love. Now she was 50 miles away in a completely different life, surrounded by people who were strangers but had shown her more kindness than she had known in months. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Miss Hayes, it is Cole. Just wanted to make sure you were settled and all right. Victoria opened the door to find the cowboy leaning against the doorframe, hat in hand. I am settled, thank you, and thank you for bringing me here, for taking a chance on someone you did not know. Like I said, sometimes the best things happen when you take chances. Cole shifted his weight, suddenly looking less certain. Martha mentioned you would be staying on for a trial month. I am glad. Think you will like it here once you get used to it. I hope so. Victoria hesitated, then added, I am still scared, though. Scared I will fail, scared I made the wrong choice, scared of 100 things I cannot even name. Cole's expression grew serious. Miss Hayes, can I tell you something? Being scared does not mean you are failing. It just means you are trying something new, and every time you are scared and do the thing anyway, you get a little braver. That is how courage works. Is that from experience? Victoria asked. Every single day of my life. Cole settled his hat back on his head. Get some rest. Morning comes early on a ranch, and Martha will probably want to show you the books first thing. Victoria slept deeply that night, exhausted from emotion and travel. She dreamed of endless prairie and sky-blue eyes and a voice saying that being scared just meant paying attention. Morning came with the sound of roosters and the smell of coffee drifting up from the kitchen. Victoria dressed quickly and made her way downstairs to find Martha already at the stove, frying eggs and thick slabs of bacon. Sleep well? Martha asked without turning around. Better than I have in months, Victoria admitted. Good. Eat up, then we will tackle the accounts. Fair warning, I have not touched them properly in near about 3 months. It is going to be a mess. Martha had not been exaggerating. The ranch office was a disaster of scattered papers, receipts, and ledgers filled with half-finished entries. Victoria stared at the chaos and felt a familiar sense of purpose settle over her. This was something she knew how to do, a problem she could solve. Where do you keep the previous year's books? Victoria asked, rolling up her sleeves. Top shelf there. Tom was meticulous about the accounting. I just never had the patience for it. Martha looked almost embarrassed. I know it is a mess. Messes can be cleaned up, Victoria said with more confidence than she felt. It will just take time. She spent the rest of the morning sorting through papers and comparing entries to the old ledgers to understand the system. It was methodical, soothing work that let her mind quiet after the chaos of the past few days. By noon, she had made enough progress to feel encouraged. Martha brought her a sandwich and a glass of cool milk. You are making more headway than I did in weeks. Maybe bringing you here was Cole's smartest idea yet. He seems like a good man, Victoria said, trying to sound casual. The best. When Tom died, I do not know what I would have done without Cole. He could have left, found a position with better pay and less responsibility, but he stayed. Treats this place like it is his own. Martha leaned against the doorframe. He does not usually bring strays home, though. You must have made quite an impression. Victoria felt heat rising in her cheeks. He was just being kind. Cole is kind to everyone, but kind is not the same as concerned. He was worried about you, I could tell. Martha's knowing look made Victoria even more flustered. Not many men would go out of their way like that for a stranger. The subject of their conversation appeared in the doorway, dusty from whatever work he had been doing outside. "Martha, we have got a fence down in the north pasture, going to need at least 4 new posts and a full day's work to fix it proper. Take whoever you need. Just get it done before the cattle figure out they can wander." Martha straightened. "And make sure you eat something before you head back out. Cannot work on an empty stomach." Cole's eyes found Victoria in the midst of her paper chaos. "How are you holding up, Miss Hayes?" "Making progress," Victoria said, oddly pleased that he had sought her out. "Though I think your bookkeeping might be worse than my former situation." He laughed, the sound warm and genuine. "Well, if you can tame Martha's books, you can probably handle anything." He accepted the sandwich Martha thrust at him. "I will be out most of the afternoon, but I will be back for supper." After he left, Martha gave Victoria another one of those knowing looks. "He likes you." "We only just met," Victoria protested. "Some things you know right away." "Tom and I met at a church social, and I knew within 5 minutes I was going to marry that man. Took him a bit longer to figure it out, but he got there eventually." Martha's expression grew wistful. "Point is, when you know, you know." Victoria turned back to the ledgers, her heart beating faster than she wanted to admit. She was not ready to think about things like that, about Cole Bishop, and the way her stomach fluttered when he smiled at her. She had just escaped one marriage. The last thing she needed was to complicate her new life with feelings she did not understand. But as the days passed, and Victoria settled into the rhythm of ranch life, those feelings became harder to ignore. She saw Cole at breakfast and supper, and often during the day when he came to the house for various reasons. He was patient with her questions about ranch life, teaching her the names of the different horses and explaining the work that went into running a cattle operation. He never made her feel foolish for not knowing things, and he seemed genuinely interested in her opinions. One evening about a week after her arrival, Victoria was sitting on the porch watching the sunset when Cole joined her, 2 cups of coffee in hand. "Thought you might like some company," he said, offering her one of the cups. "Thank you." Victoria accepted it gratefully. The evening was cool and the warmth felt good in her hands. "It is beautiful out here. I never imagined Sky could look like that." Cole settled into the chair beside her, stretching his long legs out. "Gets even better in summer. Stars so thick you cannot see the black between them." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the colors shift from gold to pink to deep purple. Victoria was learning that Cole was a man who did not need to fill every moment with words, and she found that quality restful after a lifetime of people who talked just to hear themselves. "Can I ask you something?" Cole said finally. "Of course. Do you regret it? Running away, coming here?" Victoria considered the question carefully. "No, I was terrified every moment of that first day, and some moments I am still terrified, but I do not regret it. What scares you now?" His voice was gentle, curious rather than probing. "That I will fail, that I will let Martha down, that I am not actually brave enough to build a new life." Victoria paused, then added quietly, "that I am only running away from things instead of running toward anything real." Cole turned to look at her, his expression serious in the fading light. "Miss Hayes, in the week you have been here, you have organized an entire year's worth of bookkeeping that Martha had given up on. You have cleaned and reorganized the kitchen so she can actually find things. You have helped birth a foal and did not even flinch when things got messy." "That does not sound like running away to me. That sounds like building something." "The foal was terrifying," Victoria admitted. "I thought I was going to be sick. But you stayed anyway. You helped. That is what courage looks like." Cole took a sip of his coffee. Every single person on this ranch has been impressed with you. Frank Peters was asking Martha yesterday if you were staying permanent. The hands all say the meals have improved considerably. And Martha told me just this morning that having you here has made her remember what it is like to have a partner instead of just bearing all the weight herself. Victoria felt warmth spreading through her chest that had nothing to do with the coffee. She said that. Her exact words were that you are the best thing to happen to this ranch since Tom bought the breeding bull. Cole's eyes crinkled with amusement, which, knowing Martha, is about the highest compliment she can give. I like it here, Victoria said softly. I like the work and I like Martha and I like knowing that what I do matters. I have never had that before. And what about me? Cole asked, so quietly she almost missed it. Do you like me? Victoria's heart stuttered. She turned to look at him and found him watching her with an intensity that stole her breath. Yes, she whispered, very much. Good, because I like you too, Victoria Hayes. Have since the moment you ran into me at the train depot looking like you were about to bolt like a spooked horse, but were too stubborn to actually run. He set his coffee cup aside and leaned forward, elbows on his knees. And I know it is too soon and probably improper for me to say this, but I am not a man who believes in wasting time. I think you are remarkable, and I would very much like to court you properly if you would allow it. Victoria's hands were shaking again, but this time it was not from fear. Cole, I do not know if I am ready. I only just escaped one marriage and I am still so scared of making another mistake. I know. And I am not asking you to marry me tomorrow or even next month. I am just asking if I can spend time with you, get to know you better, let you get to know me. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted to, and took her hand in his. And every time you get scared, I will be right here. I will hold your hand through every fear, Victoria. That is a promise. The warmth of his hand around hers felt like an anchor in a storm. Victoria looked at this man who had appeared in her life at exactly the moment she needed him, who had offered her a lifeline without asking for anything in return, who looked at her like she was someone worth knowing. All right, she said, her voice steadier than she expected. Yes, you can court me. Cole's smile could have lit the darkening prairie. Thank you, you will not regret this. I am already regretting it a little, Victoria admitted, but I am doing it anyway. That is my girl. Cole squeezed her hand gently before releasing it. Now, Martha has been not so subtly watching us from the kitchen window for the past 10 minutes, so we should probably head inside before she combusts from curiosity. Sure enough, when they entered the house, Martha was busying herself unnecessarily with dishes that were already clean. She looked up with studied casualness. Nice evening. Very nice, Cole said, his eyes dancing with amusement. Miss Hayes and I have decided I am going to court her properly. Martha's face broke into a genuine smile. Well, it is about time. I was beginning to think you two were going to dance around each other all summer. She dried her hands on her apron. I approve for what it is worth, but Cole Bishop, you treat her right or you will answer to me. Would not dream of doing otherwise, Martha. Cole tipped his hat to both women. Ladies, I will see you at breakfast. After he left, Martha pulled Victoria into an unexpected hug. I am happy for you, dear. Cole is a good man and you deserve good things. I am terrified, Victoria confessed into Martha's shoulder. Of course you are. But being terrified and doing it anyway is how we know we are alive. Martha pulled back, her hands on Victoria's shoulders. Just take it one day at a time. That is all any of us can do. The courtship that followed was unlike anything Victoria had expected. Cole was patient and attentive, never pushing her faster than she was ready to go. He taught her to ride properly, spending hours walking beside her horse until she felt confident enough to trot. He showed her the best spots on the ranch, a creek where wildflowers grew thick in the spring, a hill that offered a view of the entire spread, a grove of cottonwoods where the shade felt like a cathedral. They talked about everything and nothing. Victoria learned about Cole's childhood in Texas, about the brother he had lost to typhoid and the parents who had died when he was barely 20. Cole learned about Victoria's dreams of having a place that was truly hers, about her love of books and her secret talent for drawing. He never laughed at her fears, but he did not let her hide behind them either. One afternoon, about a month after their courtship began, Cole found Victoria in the barn sketching one of the new foals. He watched over her shoulder for a moment, then whistled low. "That is really good, Victoria. You have got real talent." "It is just something I do to pass time," Victoria demurred, but she was pleased by the compliment. "It is more than that. You have got an eye for detail most people do not have." Cole settled down on the hay bale beside her. "Have you ever thought about doing something with it? Like what? There is not much call for artists on a cattle ranch. Maybe not, but there is always call for people who can see beauty in ordinary things and show it to others." Cole gestured to her sketch. "You could sell these. Town folks would pay good money for drawings of their horses or their houses." The idea had never occurred to Victoria. "Do you really think so?" "I know so. Martha has been talking about getting a proper portrait of Tom from an old photograph. I bet you could do it, make her something special to remember him by." Victoria looked at her simple sketch of the foal and tried to imagine creating something meaningful for Martha. "I am too scared to try. What if I cannot do it well enough? What if I disappoint her?" Cole put his arm around her shoulders, a gesture that had become familiar and comforting over the past weeks. "And there is that phrase again. You know what I think? I think every time you say you are too scared to try, you should make yourself try anyway. Because I have watched you face down fear after fear since you got here, and you have won every single time." "It does not feel like winning," Victoria said quietly. "It feels like barely surviving. Surviving is just another word for winning when the stakes are high." Cole pressed a kiss to the top of her head, a sweet gesture that made Victoria's heart race. "And I am not going anywhere. Every time you get scared, I will be right there holding your hand, literally if you want." Victoria leaned into him, drawing strength from his solid presence. "You make it sound so simple." "It is simple. Not easy, but simple. You just keep showing up, keep trying, keep choosing courage over comfort." He was quiet for a moment, then added, "You know what the bravest thing you have done is? Running away from Theodore Winters." "No." "Though that took guts too." Cole turned to look at her. "The bravest thing you have done is let yourself care about people again. About Martha, about this place, about me. After everything you have been through, it would have been easier to wall yourself off, protect your heart. But you did not. You opened yourself up to the possibility of being hurt again, and that takes more courage than anything else." Victoria blinked back tears. "I am scared of that too, scared of caring too much and losing everything." "I know. But Victoria, sweetheart, life does not come with guarantees. All we can do is love as hard as we can for as long as we have." His hand found hers, their fingers interlacing like they had done so many times before. "And I am planning on having a very long time with you if you will let me. Are you saying you love me?" Victoria's voice came out barely above a whisper. "I am saying I am falling in love with you. Have been since you crashed into me at the train depot looking terrified and brave all at once." Cole's thumb traced circles on the back of her hand. "I know it is fast, and I know you might not be ready to hear it, but I am not going to hide how I feel." Victoria's heart felt too big for her chest. She had been so careful, so cautious, trying not to let herself feel too much too soon. But Cole's honesty undid all her careful defenses. I think I am falling in love with you too, and it terrifies me. I know, but we will figure it out together." Cole stood and pulled her to her feet, drawing her into his arms. "One fear at a time, one day at a time, I will be here for all of it." He kissed her then, soft and sweet and full of promise. Victoria kissed him back, letting herself fall into the feeling, choosing hope over fear for what felt like the 100th time since she had arrived at the ranch. When they finally pulled apart, Martha was standing in the barn doorway with her arms crossed and an amused expression on her face. "If you two are done canoodling in my barn, supper is ready." Victoria felt her face flame red, but Cole just laughed. "Sorry, Martha, got distracted, clearly." But Martha was smiling. "Come on, food is getting cold." Summer settled over the prairie in earnest, bringing long days of heat and the constant work of running a ranch. Victoria threw herself into her duties, managing the household and the books with increasing confidence. She also took Cole's advice and started doing drawings for people in town. Martha's portrait of Tom was the first, and when Victoria presented it to her, the older woman cried for the first time since Victoria had known her. "You brought him back to me," Martha said, clutching the framed drawing. "It is like he is right here in the room." Word spread, and soon Victoria had a steady stream of commissions. It was not much money, but it was hers, earned by her own talent and effort. Each completed drawing felt like another step toward the independent life she had dreamed of. Cole continued to court her with the same patience and care he showed everything else. They rode out together in the evenings when the work was done, talking until the stars came out. He taught her to rope and shoot, laughing when she missed, but always encouraging her to try again. And every time, she said, she was too scared to try something new, he would take her hand and promise to be right there with her. By the time autumn arrived, painting the prairie in gold and amber, Victoria felt like a different person from the terrified woman who had stepped off the train 5 months earlier. She was stronger, surer, more herself than she had ever been. One evening in late September, Cole asked her to ride out with him to their favorite spot, the hill that overlooked the ranch. The sunset was spectacular, all purple and orange and pink, and Victoria was content to just sit and watch in comfortable silence. "Victoria," Cole said finally, "I have been thinking about something." "That sounds dangerous," Victoria teased, but her heart was starting to race. Cole dismounted and helped her down from her horse, then took both her hands in his. "I love you. I have loved you for months now, and every day I love you more. You are brave and talented and stubborn and everything I never knew I needed." "Cole," Victoria's voice shook. "Let me finish." He took a deep breath. "I know you are scared, I know marriage is something that terrified you, and I understand why, but I am not Theodore Winters. I do not want to own you or control you or make you smaller. I want to be your partner, to build a life together where we both get to be ourselves." He pulled a small box from his pocket and opened it to reveal a simple gold band. "I am asking you to marry me, Victoria. And I know you are going to say you are too scared to try, and that is all right. But I am going to be right here, holding your hand through every fear, just like I promised. Will you take this chance with me?" Victoria looked at the ring, then at Cole's face, earnest and hopeful in the fading light. She was scared, terrified even, but she was also sure, more sure than she had ever been about anything, that Cole Bishop was the man she wanted to spend her life with. "Yes," she said, and watched joy break across his face like sunrise. "I am scared out of my mind, but yes, I will marry you." Cole slipped the ring onto her finger and pulled her into his arms, spinning her around until she laughed with pure happiness. When he set her down, he kissed her with such tenderness that Victoria felt tears streaming down her face. "I love you," she said against his lips. "I love you so much, and I am so grateful I crashed into you that day. Best collision of my life." Cole wiped away her tears with his thumbs. "We are going to be so happy, Victoria. I promise you that. I believe you." And she did. For the first time in her life, Victoria believed in the future, believed in love, believed in her own strength to face whatever came. They rode back to the ranch hand in hand, and when they told Martha the news, the older woman whooped with joy and immediately started planning the wedding. "Nothing too fancy," Victoria insisted. "Just something simple." "Simple but nice," Martha agreed. "We will have it here at the ranch. Late October, before the weather turns. The preacher from town can do the ceremony, and we will invite all the neighboring ranches. It will be perfect." The next few weeks passed in a blur of preparations. Victoria worked on her own wedding dress, a simple cream-colored gown that she sewed in the evenings by lamplight. Martha threw herself into planning the celebration with an enthusiasm that surprised everyone, clearly delighted to have something joyful to focus on. Cole seemed to float through his days, grinning like a fool according to the ranch hands. He could not seem to stop touching Victoria, little gestures of affection that spoke louder than words. A hand at the small of her back, fingers brushing hers as they passed in the hallway, stolen kisses in the barn when he thought no one was watching. But as the wedding day approached, Victoria's fears started creeping back in. Late at night, she would lie awake wondering if she was making a mistake, if she was rushing into something she was not ready for. The memories of Theodore Winters, of that suffocating feeling when she had agreed to marry a stranger, haunted her dreams. 3 days before the wedding, Victoria had a full panic attack. She was in the kitchen helping Martha prepare food for the celebration when suddenly she could not breathe. Her chest tightened, her vision narrowed, and she thought she might faint. Martha recognized the signs immediately and guided her to a chair, talking in a low, calm voice until the panic receded. When Victoria could breathe again, she found herself sobbing into Martha's shoulder. "I am so scared," Victoria gasped. "What if I am making a mistake? What if I am not ready? What if I ruin everything? Oh, honey." Martha held her close. "Being scared is normal. I was terrified before I married Tom, and I loved that man more than my own life. What if it is different? What if I am too broken from everything that happened before? You are not broken. You are healing, and that is different." Martha pulled back to look Victoria in the eye. "But if you are having real doubts, if you truly think you are not ready, then we call it off. Cole will understand. He loves you enough to wait." "No," Victoria wiped her eyes. "No, I do not want to wait. I love him. I want to marry him. I am just scared." "Then let's get Cole in here and talk it through. No sense suffering alone when you have people who love you." Martha sent one of the hands to fetch Cole from the fields. He arrived dusty and concerned, taking one look at Victoria's tear-stained face and immediately kneeling beside her chair. "What is wrong? Are you hurt?" His hands cupped her face gently. "I am scared," Victoria said, fresh tears spilling over. "I am so scared, Cole. I want to marry you, but I am terrified I am going to mess it up somehow." "Okay." Cole's thumbs brushed away her tears. "Talk to me. What specifically scares you? What if I am not a good wife? What if I disappoint you? What if I wake up one day and feel trapped like I did with Theodore?" The fears tumbled out faster now. "What if you realize I am not who you thought I was?" Cole listened to all of it, his expression patient and understanding. When she finally ran out of words, he took her hands in his. "Victoria, my love, can I tell you what I see? I see a woman who ran away from a bad situation with nothing but courage and hope. I see someone who rebuilt her life from scratch and created something beautiful. I see my best friend, my partner, the person I want beside me for every single day I have left. But what if I fail?" Victoria whispered. Then we will figure it out together. Marriage is not about being perfect. It is about showing up for each other, especially when things are hard. Cole squeezed her hands. And I am not going anywhere. Every fear you have, we will face together. Just like we have been doing all along. I do not want to wait, Victoria said, her voice stronger now. I want to marry you in 3 days. I am just scared, but I am doing it anyway. Cole smiled, that warm smile that had first made her heart flutter months ago. That is my brave girl. And you know what? I am scared too, Victoria blinked. You are, of course I am. I am scared I will not be a good enough husband for you. I am scared something will happen to take you away from me. I am scared of 100 things. He brought her hands to his lips and kissed her knuckles. But I am more scared of not taking this chance. I would rather be terrified and married to you than safe and alone. We are a pair of fools, Victoria said, but she was smiling through her tears. The best kind. Cole pulled her to her feet and into his arms. 3 more days and you will be Victoria Bishop. Think you can handle that? I am too scared to try, Victoria said, their familiar exchange bringing comfort. But I am going to do it anyway. That is all I ask. The wedding day dawned clear and beautiful, the kind of perfect October day that felt like a gift. Victoria woke early, her stomach full of butterflies but her heart sure. Martha helped her dress, fussing over every detail like a proud mother. You look beautiful, Martha said, her eyes shining with emotion. Tom would have loved to see this day. I wish I could have met him, Victoria said, adjusting the simple veil Martha had lent her. He would have adored you, and he would have approved of Cole. Tom always said that boy was going to do something special someday. Martha squeezed her shoulders. Ready? No, but let's do it anyway. The ceremony was held in the yard between the house and the barn, under a bower of autumn leaves that the ranch hands had constructed. Chairs had been borrowed from town, and what felt like half the county had turned out for the celebration. Victoria saw friendly faces everywhere, people she had come to know over the past months who had welcomed her into their community. But she only had eyes for Cole, standing at the front with the preacher, looking handsome in a new suit. His face when he saw her walking toward him was everything Victoria had never known she needed. Pure love and joy and wonder, like she was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. Frank Peters walked her down the makeshift aisle, having volunteered for the duty since Victoria had no father. When he placed her hand in Cole's, Victoria felt the last of her fear melt away. This was right. This was where she was supposed to be. The preacher's words washed over her, familiar phrases about love and commitment and joining 2 lives into one. When it came time for the vows, Cole's voice was steady and sure. I, Cole Bishop, take you, Victoria Hayes, to be my lawfully wedded wife. I promise to love you, to honor you, to stand beside you through every joy and every sorrow. I promise to hold your hand through every fear, and to remind you how brave you are on the days you forget. I will be your partner and your friend for as long as we both shall live. Victoria's voice shook, but she got through her own vows. I, Victoria Hayes, take you, Cole Bishop, to be my lawfully wedded husband. I promise to love you, to trust you, to build a life with you based on honesty and respect. I promise to be brave enough to choose love over fear every single day. You have shown me what it means to be truly cherished, and I will spend the rest of my life showing you the same. When the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, Cole kissed her to cheers and applause from the assembled guests. Victoria kissed him back, pouring all her love and gratitude and hope into that moment. The celebration that followed was full of laughter and music and dancing. Martha had outdone herself with the food, and someone had brought a fiddle for entertainment. Victoria danced until her feet hurt, first with Cole and then with Frank and then with what felt like every man at the party. As the sun set, and the party showed no signs of slowing, Cole pulled Victoria away from the crowd. They walked hand in hand to their favorite hill, watching the ranch spread out below them in the golden light. "How are you feeling, Mrs. Bishop?" Cole asked, his arm around her waist. "Terrified and happy in equal measure," Victoria admitted. "Is that normal?" "I think it is perfect." Cole turned her to face him. "We did it. You were so scared, but you did it anyway. Because you held my hand through every fear, just like you promised." Victoria stood on tiptoe to kiss him. "Thank you for that. Thank you for seeing me, for believing in me, for loving me even when I could not love myself." "That is what marriage is," Cole said softly. "Loving each other through the hard parts, believing in each other when doubt creeps in, being brave together." He pulled her close. "And I promise you, Victoria, I will keep holding your hand through every fear for the rest of our lives." "I am going to hold you to that," Victoria said, resting her head against his chest and listening to the steady beat of his heart. They stayed on the hill until the stars came out, talking about their hopes for the future. Cole wanted to eventually buy his own ranch, build something that belonged to them both. Victoria wanted to keep doing her drawings and maybe teach children someday. They dreamed aloud about a house full of laughter and children and love, about growing old together on this prairie they both called home. When they finally returned to the party, Martha pulled them aside with a mysterious smile. "I have a wedding present for you both, but you have to wait until tomorrow to get it." "Martha, you have already done so much," Victoria protested. "Hush. This is something I have been thinking about for a while, and your marriage just makes it official." Martha's eyes sparkled. "Tomorrow, after breakfast, meet me in the office." The next morning, Cole and Victoria presented themselves as requested, curious about Martha's surprise. The older woman was waiting with a leather folder full of papers. "I have been doing a lot of thinking since Tom died," Martha began. "This ranch is too much for one person, and I am not getting any younger. I do not have children to leave it to, and truth be told, I think of you two as the family I chose." She pushed the papers across the desk. "These are partnership papers. I am making you both equal partners in the Crawford Ranch, 1/3 each. That way, when I am gone, it will already be yours and there will not be any legal hassles." Victoria stared at the papers, unable to process what Martha was saying. "Martha, we cannot accept this. It is too much." "You can and you will." Martha's tone brooked no argument. "Cole has been running this place with me for years. He knows every inch of this land, every cow, every decision that needs to be made. And Victoria, you brought this house back to life. You made it a home again. You both belong here, and I want it official." Cole looked as stunned as Victoria felt. "Martha, are you sure? Surer than I have been about anything since Tom died." Martha's expression softened. "You two are going to build something beautiful together. I want to be part of that, and I want this ranch to be the foundation you build on. So sign the papers and stop arguing with me." Through tears, Victoria and Cole signed. Martha added her signature with a flourish, then pulled them both into a fierce hug. "Welcome to the family, officially and legally. Now let's get to work. Those cattle are not going to manage themselves." The months that followed were full of hard work and deep contentment. Victoria settled into married life with more ease than she had expected. Cole was everything a husband should be, supportive and loving and willing to share both the burdens and the joys. They learned each other's rhythms, how to work together and give each other space, how to fight fair and make up thoroughly. Winter came hard that year, with blizzards that trapped them in the house for days at a time. Victoria had been dreading it, worried that the isolation would make her feel trapped. But instead, She found a cozy intimacy in those snow-bound days. She drew by the fire while Cole carved wood, and Martha told stories about the ranch's history. They played cards and read aloud and discovered the pleasure of simply being together. Spring brought new life to the ranch, including a significant discovery. Victoria had been feeling poorly for weeks, tired and queasy in the mornings. Martha took one look at her over breakfast one day and smiled knowingly. "How far along are you, dear?" Victoria blinked. "How far along with what?" "The baby. You are pregnant, are not you?" The words hung in the air like a thunderclap. Victoria's hand went to her stomach automatically. Could it be true? She counted back, calculated, and felt wonder wash over her. "I think I might be," she whispered. Cole dropped his fork with a clatter. "Victoria, are you saying what I think you are saying? I think I am having a baby." Victoria looked at her husband, saw the joy and terror warring in his expression, and laughed. "We are having a baby, Cole." He whooped and lifted her out of her chair, spinning her around just like he had when she accepted his proposal. "We are having a baby. Martha, did you hear? We are having a baby." "Of course you are," Martha said dryly. "The whole county will hear if you keep shouting like that." The pregnancy was not easy. Victoria was sick for months, and there were days when she was convinced she was dying. Cole hovered anxiously, driving her crazy with his concern until Martha finally banned him from the house during the worst of it. "Let the poor girl suffer in peace," Martha told him firmly. "You pacing and wringing your hands is not helping anyone." But Cole could not help himself. Every evening he would bring Victoria wildflowers from the prairie or a special treat from town, anything to make her smile. And when the sickness finally passed and Victoria bloomed into the full roundness of pregnancy, his wonder was a beautiful thing to see. "I still cannot believe there is a whole person growing in there," he would say, his hand on her belly feeling for kicks. "Our person, made from both of us." "I am very aware of that fact," Victoria would reply dryly, shifting to ease the pressure on her back. "This person is using my ribs as a practice drum." The baby came in late October, almost exactly a year after Victoria and Cole's wedding. The labor was long and difficult, and there were moments when Victoria was convinced she could not do it. "I am too scared," she gasped between contractions, gripping Cole's hand with bruising force. "I am too scared to try, I know." Cole wiped her face with a cool cloth, his own face pale but determined. "But you are doing it anyway, just like always, and I am right here. I am not going anywhere." Martha, acting as midwife with the help of the doctor from town, was briskly encouraging. "You are doing fine, Victoria. Just a little while longer." When the baby finally arrived, a squalling, red-faced boy with a shock of dark hair, Victoria burst into tears of relief and exhaustion and overwhelming love. Cole cut the cord with shaking hands, then cradled his son with such tenderness that Victoria fell in love with him all over again. "He is perfect," Cole breathed. "Absolutely perfect." They named him Thomas Cole Bishop, after Martha's late husband and his father. Little Tommy was a healthy, hungry baby who kept them up at night and filled the house with noise and life. Martha was a doting honorary grandmother, spoiling the baby shamelessly and giving Victoria and Cole advice whether they wanted it or not. "That is what I get for making you partners," she would grumble when they teased her about her interference. No respect from the younger generation. But her eyes were soft when she looked at Tommy, and Victoria knew how much it meant to Martha to have a child in the house again. The years that followed were full and rich. Victoria and Cole had 2 more children, a daughter they named Martha Caroline in honor of the woman who had made their life possible, and another son called James. The Crawford Ranch prospered under their partnership. growing and expanding as Cole's management skills and Victoria's head for business combined to take advantage of the growing cattle market. Victoria's drawing business grew too. She became known throughout the county for her skill, and people traveled from far away to commission her work. She taught her children to draw, delighted when Martha Caroline showed a natural talent that surpassed even her own. But more than the success or the prosperity, Victoria treasured the life they had built together. Every morning she woke beside Cole and felt grateful for the courage she had found to take that first terrifying step. Every evening when they sat on the porch watching their children play, she marveled at how far she had come from the frightened woman on the steamboat. Martha lived to see all 3 grandchildren, as she called them, grow into childhood. She passed peacefully in her sleep at the age of 63, leaving the ranch entirely to Cole and Victoria as she had always planned. At her funeral, Victoria spoke about the woman who had taken in a stranger and given her not just a job but a family. "She taught me that bravery is not the absence of fear," Victoria said, her voice clear despite her tears. "It is doing what needs to be done even when you are scared. She taught me that family is what you build, not just what you are born into. And she taught me that love is the most important thing we can give each other." As the children grew, Victoria and Cole faced new challenges and new fears. There were droughts that threatened the cattle, and winters so harsh they lost stock. There were illnesses that terrified them and accidents that reminded them how fragile life could be. But through it all, they kept their promise to each other. Every fear they faced together, hands joined, hearts united. Tommy grew into a thoughtful young man who loved the ranch as much as his father did. Martha Caroline, bright and artistic, shocked everyone by announcing at 18 that she wanted to study art in Chicago. Victoria recognized her own younger self in her daughter's determination and gave her blessing despite her fears. "I am too scared to let you go," Victoria admitted when they packed Martha Caroline's trunk for the journey east. "But you are going to do it anyway," her daughter said with a knowing smile. "Because that is what you do, Mama. You are brave even when you are scared." James, the youngest, surprised them all by showing an aptitude for business. At 20, he was already talking about expanding into new markets and modernizing the ranch's operations. Cole and Victoria grew older together, their love deepening with each passing year. Cole's hair went silver, and Victoria's drawings showed the signs of experience and age. But when they sat together on their porch in the evenings, watching the sun set over the prairie that had become home, they were still the frightened woman and the kind cowboy who had found each other at exactly the right moment. "You ever regret it?" Cole asked one evening when they were both in their 50s. "Running away, coming here, marrying me." Victoria took his hand, the gesture as natural as breathing after all these years. "Not for a single moment. I was terrified of almost everything back then. But you held my hand through every fear, just like you promised. You gave me the courage to become who I was supposed to be." "You gave yourself that courage," Cole corrected gently. "I just reminded you it was there." "We gave it to each other," Victoria said. "That is what love does. It makes us brave enough to become ourselves." They had 37 years together before Cole passed away in his sleep at the age of 63. Victoria grieved deeply, but she did not break. She had learned too well how to be strong, how to face her fears, how to keep going even when she wanted to stop. She lived another 12 years after Cole's death, long enough to see Tommy marry and have children of his own, to see Martha Caroline become a renowned artist whose work hung in galleries across the country, to see James build the ranch into one of the most successful operations in Illinois. On her last day, Victoria sat on the porch with her grandchildren around her, watching the sunset paint the prairie gold and pink. One of the little ones climbed into her lap, and Victoria held the small, warm body close. "Tell us the story, Grandma," the child demanded, "about how you met Grandpa." Victoria smiled, the memory as clear as if it had happened yesterday instead of more than 50 years ago. "I was on a train platform," she began, "and I was more scared than I had ever been in my life. I was running away from a bad situation with no idea what I was going to do next. And then I ran right into the kindest man I ever met. And Grandpa saved you," the child said excitedly. "No, sweetheart, I saved myself. But your grandfather held my hand through every fear and reminded me that I was brave enough to do hard things." Victoria looked out at the prairie, at the ranch that had become her life's work, at the legacy she and Cole had built together. "He taught me that being scared is not the same as being weak, and that the best things in life are worth being scared for." That night, Victoria Hayes Bishop passed away peacefully in her sleep, surrounded by the life she had built from courage and fear and love. In her hand was a faded photograph of a young cowboy with kind eyes and a patient smile. The man who had held her hand through every fear and taught her that bravery was not the absence of fear, but the choice to keep going despite it. Her children found her in the morning, and though they grieved, they also celebrated. Because Victoria Hayes had lived a full and beautiful life, had loved deeply and been deeply loved in return, had built something lasting and true from the ruins of her first fear-filled flight. The ranch continued for generations, passed down through Tommy and his children and their children after that. And always, the story was told of the frightened bride who ran away and the cowboy who taught her to be brave. Their love story became the foundation of a family legacy, a reminder that the most beautiful things in life often begin with fear and the courage to face it. In the old house on the Crawford Ranch, in a place of honor above the fireplace, hangs a drawing. It shows a young woman and a tall cowboy holding hands, their faces turned toward each other with expressions of love and hope. Victoria drew it herself, years after their wedding, capturing the moment Cole had first promised to hold her hand through every fear. And beneath it, in Martha Caroline's elegant script, are the words that sum up the story of Victoria Hayes and Cole Bishop. "She was too scared to try. He held her hand through every fear. Together, they built something beautiful." That is how love stories are made, not in the absence of fear but in the facing of it. Not in perfect courage but in trembling steps forward despite the shaking. Victoria Hayes learned that lesson on a train platform in 1872, and she spent the rest of her life proving it true. Fear was her companion, but love was her guide, and the hand of a good man was her anchor through every storm. In the end, that was more than enough. It was everything.